What's up, softball players? I'm Coach Dan Blewett. In today's video, let's talk about your pre-pitch process to have the best mindset for pitching. All right, so in today's video, we're going to go over sort of like a 4-step pre-pitch process that I use as a pitcher that I learned from, I think it was an MLB pitcher. I heard him talk about this on TV and I thought it was awesome and I adopted it myself. That's how all this wisdom gets passed around, right? You hear it from someone or someone teaches it to you. So I want to share some of this today and how I sort of have also adapted it for myself and for you here as softball pitchers. So basically, what we're going to do is talk about the different sort of zones on the field where you'll be and what you're going to think about in each of those zones. So number one, when you're off of the circle, so when you're outside the circle, that means between pitches. So say you got a fly out to center field, they caught the ball, you're walking around, they're throwing it around, your infielders, right? And then you get it back and you catch it. And now you're off or outside the circle and the hitter's just starting to, walk over and get over ready for her turn at bat. When you're in this zone, when you're outside the circle, you're going to think about the big game things. What's the score? Who's coming up to bat? How many outs are there? What part of the field are you going to have to cover on a bunt? What are you going to have to back up if a ball is hit to the outfield, to the right center gap, to the left center gap? All those different tasks that you have as a pitcher, this is the time to think about those. When you're outside the circle, and you're waiting for the hitter to walk up into the box. This is all the big game stuff. All right, next, when you walk into the circle, this is when the hitter is starting to get maybe close to the box or maybe they're not in the batter's box yet. And this can vary slightly depending on your process and really how fast the game's moving. But next is when you just walk inside the circle, but you're not on the rubber yet. This is when you're really going to think about the game situation. So who's coming up? How many outs are there? I know we discussed this before, but who's up? How many outs are there? What has this hitter done so far? What do you know about this hitter? Is it a big power hitter? Are they a slapper? Have they bunted twice? Are they tiny? Look like they have no power? Do they have the worst swing in the world? Do they look like they have 2 left feet and they're going to trip out of the box? What does the hitter look like? And how are you starting to think about your approach to this at bat? So that's what you're going to start to think about, is starting to assess the situation because you've already thought about the big stuff. You know where you're going to back up. You know where you're going to have to field a bunt. You know what you're going to have to do if you get a comebacker. All that stuff you already thought about in zone 1. Now that you're in zone 2, you're starting to think about the situation and the hitter. You also might remind yourself what you're confident of, what you're not so confident in today. Which pitches have been working, which pitches have not been working. So if you don't really like your drop ball today, it's not really biting, they're hitting it pretty hard, or your rise ball is excellent today and you're really confident in that. This is the time to think about all that stuff as it's going to interact with the hitter in this at bat. Next is when you approach the rubber. So either you walk up and you're like straddling the rubber, or you're standing behind it, or you're actually standing on it getting your sign. So when you get your sign, this is the time to think through, what are you actually going to look for? What do you want to throw? Now, I realize that most coaches are calling pitches, which I think is a travesty. But you should still think through it yourself, even if that's the case. Do you want to throw a drop ball? Or are you looking for your catcher to call a change up first pitch? What's happening right now? So this is going to be your pre-pitch process between pitches as well, because you're not going to walk back off the mound so much between pitches. You're basically just going to sort of back up, again, reassess the situation, get back on the rubber. What's my next pitch? What did the hitter do last time? So if say that it's a 2-2 count coming up, did the hitter foul the last pitch off? Did they pull it foul? Did they hit a long foul home run? Did they swing and miss and look ugly? Do they have a really slow bat? Did you figure out they really can't hit a rise ball or a drop ball? What have you learned so far in the at-bat? Because this is not just first pitch of the at-bat stuff. This is also between every pitch of the at-bat. So when you're on the rubber and you're ready to get the sign from the catcher, and in that little bit of like downtime between when the hitter's maybe taking their last practice swing and you're ready, but they're not in there yet, when you're anticipating that sign, that's when you're really going to focus on, how are we attacking the hitter? What did we learn so far? And what is our game plan for the pitch calling and the execution going forward? And so last, zone 4, this is when you're on the rubber and you're ready to make your pitch. And so now, because we've done all this other work, right? We've assessed the game situation. We know the out, we know the score, we know the inning, we know what we're going to do with a comebacker or a bunt to the left side, bunt to the right side, all that stuff. And we've assessed what the hitter can and can't do, what you personally can and can't do, your confidence level for different pitches, what's happened when you've thrown different pitches to different locations so far in the at-bat. You've done all this work mentally, right? So now that you step on the rubber and you've got your sign, you're throwing a drop curve on the outer third of the plate, Now it's time to think one thought, and that is execute this pitch. You don't think about outcomes. You don't think about any of the other stuff that we talked about, because we've already covered it. That's why we go through this process, to get all that stuff settled. We've checked it off of our big checklist. So now our mind is clear. We know where we're going on a bunt. We know what we're doing with a comebacker. We know what this hitter can and can't hit well. Now we've chosen drop curve, outer third. And so our only thing that we're thinking left now is not the next pitch, not the previous pitch. It's just execute this pitch. Make this pitch to the best of my ability. And when you're clear and you're focused like that your only job is to execute this pitch, the pitch that I've chosen and the location that we've chosen, then pitching gets a lot easier. When you still have all this other clutter floating around your head because you haven't gone through your mental process and your checklist, then it makes executing this pitch harder because you're still worried about things. You're worried about outcomes. You're worried about things that you might have to do if all these different scenarios might come to fruition. So once you've done all the work in zone 4, zone 3, zone 2, and now you're on the rubber, zone 1, and you're ready to make your pitch, all you have to do is stare down that mitt and execute and compete. And that's, in a sense, how you distill all the mental checklist, all the processes into me finally making my best pitch. And then you just repeat this every pitch for the entire game. And that's how you can piece together really great starts over time. So hopefully this video was helpful. Obviously, the mental side of softball is really important. I was a pitcher, so I know how many butterflies fly through your head and your stomach. Sometimes you have this cymbal banging monkey in your head, you know. You get sped up, you get nervous, and you just have a lot of commotion of things to think about, and nerves and doubts and fears, and it's hard to calm them all down. But this process is important in helping you bring everything down to one tiny thing to focus on, which is executing the pitch that you've chosen to the best of your ability. All right. So if you enjoyed this video, definitely subscribe. Check out the description links below. You'll find more mental training videos, my courses, all that good stuff. And I'll see you here in the next video.